What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast, and this is the undefeated post-weigh-in show for UFC Vegas 56. Back at home base, back in the lab. Let's get after it. I'm sorry this video is coming out late. I was traveling all day. As you can see, I'm a little pink around the cheeks. Got some sun this week, so coming to you late. Better late than never. We're looking at the face-offs. We're looking at the weigh-ins, seeing if we can find any little chink in the armor of any of these fighters that can maybe give us a little bit of an advantage betting tomorrow. So this show is brought to you by Pub Sports Radio, and the lines are presented by Superbook Sports. Make sure you check Superbook Sports out. Let's get into it. First fight of the night, JJ Aldrich taking on Erin Blanchfield. Both women came in with the one-arm flex today. JJ made 125. Erin came in at 124.5, ever so slightly under. Both women look good on the scales. Slight size advantage to JJ Aldrich. This was a good face-off. Not anything surprising here in this spot. Currently lined, we've got Erin Blanchfield a minus 500 favorite. I did end up throwing a three-leg parlay together. I stuck her in that. I'm good to go there. I think she wins the fight. I could see her breaking JJ with the pace late in this thing, which means TKO, submission, both are on the table. If she just grinds on her, body locks her, works her way, this thing is close, it's hairy, it's greasy, decision obviously on the table. I don't want to pick a method. I don't want to disrespect JJ. She's tough. She's hard to finish. She's getting better. So because of that, I did go ahead and parlay Erin Blanchfield. Probably not my sharpest bet of all time, but I do think she wins on Saturday. So cross your fingers that the just win bet gets through here for me. Next up, we've got Rinat Fakhretdinov taking Andreas Michailidis. Both guys came in at 170.5. Both guys cutting down to 170 for the first time. Very interested in this scale matchup here. Rinat, he threw his arms up, but he looked okay, but he was a little bit sucked out, if I'm being honest. Now, that's not to say much, because Andreas Michailidis, this guy was sucked out. Oh my god, he looked like Skeletor up there on the scale. He looked really rough, barely got his arms up for a flex. As we know, some of these guys have no problem refueling. They get some liquid in them, they get some hydration going, and all of a sudden they're good to go. They perform fine on fight night. However, Michailidis is a guy that we know has a sketchy gas tank to begin with, so I'm not convinced. Both guys looked okay. I'd say Fakhretdinov looked a little bit better on the scales. Slight height advantage when they faced off to Rinat Fakhretdinov. These guys were respectful at the face-offs. I think this line is wide just because Rinat has not been tested at the UFC level. The plus 220 on Andreas Michailidis kind of has me a little bit intrigued. I was actually looking at throwing a degenerate dart at that submission plus 1,400. We know Renat's a guy that doesn't have the best gas tank himself, but after seeing what Michailidis looked like on the scales, it's one of my things. I try not to bet on people with bad gas tanks. The fact that he looks so sucked out, the fact that he is going down to a new weight class for the very first time, I have no idea how he's going to perform at this level. This is maybe a spot we can jump in live betting. If it looks like Rinat can't finish Michailidis and he's fading and Michailidis somehow looks to be the fresher fighter going into round two, maybe we jump in live. Even though the plus 220 could look like massive value in hindsight, I'm leaving this one alone. Definitely not interested in getting involved at this point. Jeff Molina, El Jefe, taking on Zhalgas Zhumagulov. We've got Molina coming in at 125.5. Master Z needed that full extra pound, came in at 126. My guy Jeff Molina was stone cold on the scales today. No issues whatsoever. Looked healthy, looked relaxed. Zhalgas Zhumagulov extremely sucked out. He's got one of those faces, whether the cheekbones pop, I would do that too if I was cutting weight. The cheekbones popping out big time. He gave a big flex though. He had plenty of energy once they read the weight off on the scales. He's a guy he's a professional. He's been doing this a long time. He's been around forever. I don't see any issues with him whatsoever. This was a super intense face-off, and I loved every second of it. Zhalgas Zhumagulov wearing the dead animal on his head, getting in close. My boy Jeff Molina not backing down, not blinking whatsoever. I love the intensity. Jeff staring him down as he walked away. This is going to be a hell of a fight, guys. So I got in on Jeff Molina at minus 155. I'll be honest with you, I like that price tag a whole lot better than anything you're going to find out there right now. He's minus 175, minus 180, minus 190. I think Jeff Molina wins this fight purely based on volume. I think he's out there looking to make a statement. He's training with James Krause. He's currently got the former and potentially future champion, my guy, training with him. So he's in a good place. He's got good training partners. He's got all the room in the world to grow. He's got a height and reach advantage. He's got a gas tank, perceived gas tank advantage. He's got a volume advantage, I can promise you that. And his chin has been checked a couple times. He checks out durability-wise. Like, I love everything there is to love about Jeff Molina. I just want to caution you guys, the price is getting out of control. Some people make fun of me for not wanting to pull a trigger on a bet because of the price, but that's literally what sports betting is. So if you're a just pick the winner type of person, I'm picking Jeff Molina. I think he wins this fight. I got minus 155. I can't in good conscience tell you guys to go out there and lay minus 190 or so on him when I got that much better of a line, but that is the side that I am on. I wouldn't be shocked if we get a volume-based TKO later in this fight, probably winning by decision because Zhalgas Zhumagulov is a vet. He's been around forever. He knows what he's doing. So don't be shocked if this thing goes the full 15. Tony Gravely taking on Johnny Munhoz. Gravely came in at 135.5. Munhoz 135 on the dot. Gravely looked solid today. He's a guy that we've seen struggle a little bit on the scales. He's got a lot of muscle on him. So I was kind of hoping he looked a little bit rough, but I'll give credit where it's due. He looked good today. We've got Johnny Munhoz, who looks solid on the scales. No issues whatsoever from him. Munhoz is tall, folks. He is big. These guys look like they belong 2 weight classes apart. This is where I love watching these face-offs. It's not always about the bad weight cut. It's not always about the dead, soulless eyes when people are up on the scales. Sometimes it's just about seeing how these guys size up. I was not expecting the massive height difference between these two. I knew Munhoz was taller. I did not realize it was going to be this much taller. Now, we have talked about it before that if you're a wrestler, if you're a primary grappler, you like to be a little bit shorter. You like to be able to have a low center of gravity. Get in on those hips a little bit easier. So for those people out there that are on the Gravely side, again, got to give credit where it's due. Not being biased here with my breakdowns, that might be an advantage given his game plan. I do think that Munhoz is going to be stronger than people expect. I do think that Munhoz's grappling, his wrestling, is something that might be competitive with Gravely. So I'm on Munhoz here. I got the dog at plus 115. This has moved to a pick'em. On Superbook Sports, it's minus 110 on both sides. That's a big move. You know, I talked with John Murray, the headlines maker at Superbook Sports, about this a couple weeks ago. When a line moves to pick'em or flips from a dog to a favorite, in their opinion, that is massive. Like, they respect the money coming in on the side that forces that move. So that's something definitely to keep an eye on. You've got everybody out there screaming Gravely, Gravely, Gravely. However, this line is now moved to a pick'em price tag, and Munhoz has taken all the action. So be forewarned, we're on a plus number on Munhoz. Again, in good conscience, I got to tell you, I got a better number than what's out there. I would still take Munhoz at pick'em. I think he should have been the favorite in the first place. I like his inside the distance and sub props. Next up, Benoit Saint Denis taking on Nicolas Stolze. We got Benoit Saint Denis coming in at 155.5. Nicolas Stolze 156. Benoit looked cut up. This is another spot. Both guys dropping weight for the very first time. I was circling this one to check it out when they got on the scales today. But Benoit looked good. He's absolutely jacked at this weight class. Nicolas Stolze, he looks so relaxed. Big smile, big flex, shredded up there, smiling, having a good time. Like, if anybody was going to have a rough weight cut, like, this guy definitely did not have a rough weight cut. He was fine dropping to 155. No issues whatsoever. Decent sized height advantage here for Stolze. Benoit Saint Denis, obviously a little bit shorter, a little bit more compact, a little bit thicker. Boy, did he look calm. Like we talked about in his first fight, he looked a little shell-shocked, wide-eyed out there under the big lights. He was level-headed and calm, and Stolze, you could tell, wanted to kind of get in his face and push him a little bit, and Benoit Saint Denis just kind of blank slate stared him back. I loved seeing that. This number has been bouncing around all week. Benoit Saint Denis going from in between minus 165 and minus 150-ish in that level. He's sitting at minus 160 right now, plus 140 on Nicolas Stolze. I see a lot of people taking that dog shot on Nicolas Stolze, and I'm on the other side, folks. Like, I know everybody's talking about how, you know, just because this guy survived his UFC debut, now we got to pay a chalk price tag for him. I've heard that time and time again. People I very much love and respect in the betting community have been using those terms, and I don't think that has anything to do with it. Like, we're not betting him as a favorite because he survived against Zaleski dos Santos. We're not betting him as a favorite because he is tough and because he is durable. It's because when he got brought in, the UFC thought he could take Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. It's because this guy is a powerful grappler. It's because this guy is sick with his jiu-jitsu. And on top of that, Nicolas Stolze is a guy that accepts bottom position. I don't know that people are not talking about this enough. He is more than willing to go to his back and play off his guard, throw up arm triangles from his back, things of that nature. And I don't know why people aren't kind of picking up on that. It's something that I talked about. I think that Benoit Saint Denis can win this fight by decision or by submission. If he just wants to take Stolze down and grind on him, I think that's absolutely an available path to victory. And you know what? This show is sponsored by Superbook Sports. So we don't use betting lines from, other sports books or anything like that out there. But there is one sports book. To keep myself from getting in trouble, there is one sports book out there that does this really cool thing where they offer specific submission props, specific ones. And I have been watching so closely this whole week, waiting for them to open this market up. Because for those of you who don't know, Benoit Saint Denis is well on record saying that his very favorite submission is the arm triangle, the head and arm choke. And that is usually somewhere in the ballpark of 16-1 on this particular betting site. So I was salivating. I'm chomping at the bit for them to open this up because I want to go get money on Benoit Saint Denis by arm triangle at 16-1 against a guy who is more than willing to go to his back. I think that Benoit can take him down, rack up control time, pass the guard, and then from there he's going to be working those offensive submissions. And that arm triangle choke of his is nasty. His squeeze is deadly. So I wanted to get on that. Bookmakers are not stupid, folks. It's plus 450. It's usually 16-1 and it's plus 450. So the books, unfortunately, were onto this before I ever got anywhere close to it. So I'm very upset, very frustrated because I was absolutely going to have some of that. Benoit Saint Denis by submission flat is plus 250. So you're not even getting that much of an incentive to go ahead and play his favorite sub prop. Really pissed off that they pulled that move on me, but they knew. They were wise to it. I'm picking Benoit Saint Denis. I don't know that I want to lay minus 160 to find out whether or not he's going to win this fight, but guys, I think he's going to win this fight. Like I've been tempted all week. I might end up doing 1.6 units to win one on him just because I have major FOMO when it comes to betting. If I call something, I want to win money on it when I'm right. I hate it. I hate it when I call something right and I'm sitting on the sidelines and I'm like, nailed it. My pockets are empty. That bothers me to no end. So I might end up getting on Benoit Saint Denis, even though all my friends are talking about Nicholas Stolze being the live underdog here. I think he can out-grapple Nicholas Stolze, basically, is all this thing comes down to. Next fight up, we have got Daniel Arwetta taking on Damon Jackson. Both guys came in at 145.5. No problem for Arwetta. He fought just a couple weeks ago, made weight at 135, so this is a 10-pound break for him. He was feeling himself on the scales today. No problems whatsoever. His opponent, however, Damon Jackson, he looked a bit rough, if I'm being honest, guys. He's not a small 145er. Damon Jackson comes in pretty solidly, but he's another guy that is a consummate professional. He's another guy that I'm not worried about if he looks a little rough on the scale. He didn't look like he was going to pass out or fall over. It was just like, yeah, this weight cut may not have been the best one for him. Doesn't mean he's not going to perform tomorrow. He was extremely intense once they called the weight. So that's the kind of thing that, like, when that relief washes over you and you've got energy after your weight gets called, I'm like, all right, he's fine. When they face off, Damon Jackson looks like he is a full weight class bigger than this man. That's exactly what we're dealing with here. His opponent, Daniel Arwetta, is really short. He's a short, stocky wrestler type. The problem for me on this one, and the reason I didn't just parlay up Damon Jackson or load up on him inside the distance like everybody else is doing, is Daniel Arwetta is a wrestler. He's a grappler. He's a 15-minute grinder. And Damon Jackson's got like a 37% takedown defense rating. He is more than fine to play off of his back. He gives up those takedowns and gets let down all the time. I would not be shocked if this got a whole lot closer going down the stretch than people are expecting. If Daniel Arwetta is able to stay safe on the feet, punch his way into range, grab onto Damon Jackson and rip him to the floor, he's just got to mind his P's and Q's. If he wants to stay on top and let Damon Jackson play from bottom. However, that size may become an issue. Damon Jackson's the type of guy that can sweep you, submit you, roll you for an armbar, or, mounted triangle choke, shit like that, because he's dealing with a smaller man. So I'm not taking the dog shot. I'm just saying I've got that weird gambler's prickle on the back of my neck that I don't necessarily want to go all in on Damon Jackson in this particular spot. The one thing I do want to do, though, real quick, is shout out my guy Narco Cop, his Lambo Parlay podcast that he does. Him and his guest were talking about this one today, and the price difference between Damon Jackson's submission and TKO is drastic in this case. Everyone is expecting Damon Jackson by sub, but I was looking at this earlier this week, and I'm like, man, he just came off a TKO. Like, he's facing a smaller man now who's a primary grappler. Like, why can't he just pound this kid out? And they were talking about that on the Lambo Parlays podcast. I want to make sure I shout them out and give them their due here on this show, because I heard that, and again, it just kind of reinforced the thing that was in the back of my head already, that I was like, man, they're right. Like, you look over at the numbers, and they just kind of don't make sense. If you're going to take a flyer on this one, if you don't have any action and you just want to kind of throw a dart at it and see if something hits, try that TKO prop. You know, that's not a bad way to throw, $10 on a fight that you had no action on and hope that you can get something back for it, because they are disrespecting Damon Jackson's ability to ground and pound in this particular spot. Next up, Alex De Silva taking on Joe Solecki. Both guys came in 155.5. Alex De Silva looked absolutely jacked on the scales today, folks. Intense flex from him. Joe Solecki, no issues. Very relaxed on the scales. These guys size up extremely well. Slight size advantage goes to Joe Solecki. I've been bouncing back and forth on this one all week. I feel like it's dog or pass. Like, I kind of want to bet De Silva. Joe Solecki should be able to out-wrestle this man, but Alex De Silva's taken a 2-year layoff, a guy that's younger and has so much opportunity to increase his skill set, and he's already going to war with somebody like my guy Brad Riddell, someone who I'm extremely high on, one of the best grinders in the business, a guy that does not give up. He got out-grinded and out-vet lessoned by that man 2 years ago. He's going to come back better. And we've seen Joe Solecki accept that bottom position. We have seen Joe Solecki give up takedowns and roll to his back and play jiu-jitsu. And if he does that against a guy like Alex De Silva, and De Silva just maintains his energy a little bit better, I absolutely think that he can steal a win here off of Joe Solecki. So again, another one, I am staying away from it. I think Alex De Silva is live, but coming off that 2-year layoff, and a guy that has gassed out in fights before, has showed a bit of a rough gas tank before, I don't know if I'm running to the window to bet him. We will figure it out. A guy that I very much respect in the space. Shout out to you, Jay Sportskeg. He is on Alex De Silva at this plus line. I wish I had gotten on Alex De Silva back when he was, plus 180, plus 190 way looking ahead on this fight, because those numbers sound fantastic to me. The plus 145, it's playable. I definitely could do it. Everyone thinks I'm a Long Island hater. If I bet against a guy like Joe Solecki, I know I'm going to get the shit for it. So, tempted on Alex De Silva. Not sure what I'm doing just yet on this one. Might end up being a pass. Next up, we've got Felice Herrig taking on Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Herrig came in 115 on the dot. Karolina Kowalkiewicz 115.5. Big smile and flex from Felice Herrig. No issues from her whatsoever. Looked happy to be up there again. And Karolina, big smile from her. I mean, big, huge, cheesy grin from her. She looks like she's really happy to be back. This was an intense face-off. Felice Herrig going straight on back to the Bulldog. Cocky looking, getting in her opponent's face, smirking at her, trying to get that level up on the mental battle. Karolina reached out to go ahead and offer her the handshake, and Herrig wanted nothing to do with it, stepped away and flexed instead. I kind of like the intensity, I'm not going to lie. Coming back after such a layoff, I'm enjoying the intensity from Felice Herrig. This, again, is an extremely sketchy spot because I don't trust Karolina not to fold up and go home, even though she is the better fighter in almost every single aspect of the MMA game. So, you probably should just straight up be blind betting Karolina in this spot because she is the more well-rounded mixed martial artist who has fought a much higher level of competition. But again, I don't like to bet on people whose fire has died in their eyes when they get hurt, when they get punched, and they just want to cover up and go home. I can't do it. Felice Herrig is currently 20-1 to win by TKO. And that's the kind of thing that I'm just like... Herrig mostly just out-grapples and mauls people, but if she's made any improvements whatsoever, and if she can take down Karolina and just pound on her a little bit from top position, we could see Karolina take her ball and go home. It's happened before. It could definitely happen again, and 20-1 is my kind of price tag for that kind of an outcome. So, again, no bet at this point. I don't want to touch this fight with any serious investment. Might take a sprinkle on Felice Herrig by TKO because that number is insanity. But I kind of lean to... I started this week leaning on Felice Herrig. Now I'm kind of understanding that Karolina really should be the favorite in this spot, but I can't get over the mental hurdles. Like I said, I might be buying a little bit too much into the narrative that we talked about on Monday, but I can't get over the hurdles of Karolina Kowalkiewicz in this spot. Alonzo Minifield taking on Askar Mozharov, and oh boy, Alonzo Minifield came in at 205, Mozharov came in at 204.5. Alonzo Minifield, as we know, the human tank, absolutely jacked this man every single time we see him. Mozharov actually looked fine on the scales today, no issues whatsoever. Obviously, this is the talk of the town. Mozharov is everybody's favorite subject this week, and it's funny because this man went from being a very small underdog to being a massive underdog once the news broke of his record. It's really interesting to me because I said this spot was a dog or pass going into the week. And I know everybody out there is like, bro, if you watched any tape on this man, you knew he was a fraud. You knew he would fold up and go home. And while all of that is true, I ain't trusting Alonzo Minifield at minus 170. Are you kidding me? Like, we've seen Alonzo Minifield lose 2 cans in the UFC before, and people got into it with me in the YouTube section comments of my Monday breakdown defending Alonzo Minifield's record, and I'm like, he's literally scraping the bottom of the barrel in the UFC as far as talent goes. Like, he does not have credible wins. His losses are to guys that are low on the totem pole or on their way out the door. Like, this is not a UFC caliber fighter for long. I don't believe in Alonzo Minifield. Now, can he explode and hit this guy with one big power shot? Yes. Yes, he can, and he can fold him over with that. I did reach out to my guy John Murray over at Superbook Sports on this one because it's such an interesting topic. I had to hear what he had to say. And he said they've basically been seeing nothing but sharp, aggressive money on Alonzo Minifield since the news has broke. That drove this thing all the way up to a minus 260. You can get Askar Mozharov at plus 205 on the other side, and nobody is taking that. Absolutely nobody is accepting that offer for the underdog on the flip side of this thing. It's so crazy to me, though, guys, because I can't imagine laying this kind of a price tag on Alonzo Minifield. Every time you do, you get burned. The guy has a bad gas tank. He's kind of a one-hitter quitter. He has decent trip takedowns in wrestling, I guess, and this guy probably has nothing off of his back, so maybe Alonzo does just take him down and sub him or ground and pound him in round 1 easy. But when you watch that face-off, this guy looks like a heavyweight. He is massive. Like, I know Alonzo Minifield is a tank. He's short, he's stocky, he's broad, but he's so much bigger than Alonzo Minifield. And this guy's leg kicks are insane. He winds up like he's swinging a baseball bat and just cracks people in the leg. Alonzo Minifield is a slow, lumbering, plodding guy that's got to get into range on you before he swings a big power shot to try to clip you. If this guy plays the range game, it's only going to take 2 or 3 of those leg kicks. Guys, I would steer you away from this fight. I said it was dog or pass on Monday. Wasn't betting the dog. And now that the line has moved an entire $1, I'm like, do I want to fade Alonzo Minifield that bad? I mean, I kind of do. I kind of do. But I'm probably not going to bet this one. But especially if I'm having a good night, leading up to this spot, don't be shocked if I throw something on Askar Mozharov here, because everybody and their mom is just piling in on Alonzo Minifield here. And I'm like, guys, the fight hasn't changed. Like, just because you found out that this guy has a shady record, just because you found out that he changed his name, doesn't mean the skill sets have changed whatsoever. And I still think this guy can take out Alonzo Minifield. I'm just saying. It's not a fight that I'm going to be investing in heavily, or maybe even at all. But please don't play Alonzo Minifield at minus 260, guys. You missed the boat. You already missed the boat if you were going to play Alonzo Minifield. All right, we'll try to rattle through these next couple ones. Show's getting long at this point. Zarrukh Adashev. Ode Osbourne. Adashev came in at 125.5. Osbourne 126. Zarrukh Adashev looked great, super relaxed, threw one arm up in pre-victory. Ode Osbourne, he looked sucked out bad, like really bad. I mean, like chalky lips and everything. Like, he was absolutely out of liquids. Good face-off. Very respectful face-off. Height advantage for Ode Osbourne. We knew that was going to be the case, and he stepped on the stage just a little gingerly for me. Like, that's something that I like to look out for, is the guys that don't recover well, the movement isn't quite there for getting on and off the scale and the stage, and I saw that a little bit in Ode here. Guys, I've been waiting to pounce on this entire week. I'm going to play Zarrukh Adashev. I talked about it on Monday, and I knew that especially once people saw the size discrepancy between these guys, more Ode money would come in. Ode Osbourne is a first-round finisher, and if he doesn't get you out of there, he slows down in round 2. If he doesn't get you out of there in round 2, he slows down further in round 3. I think he's a bit of a size bully, and his gas tank doesn't hold up at this weight class. Zarrukh Adashev is a solid kickboxer, a little tank of energy, a guy who's training with Frankie Edgar, like, he's gonna even out. He got to the UFC too early. He showed us some skills in his last couple fights. He is getting better. So this is the kind of guy that I think is going to surprise some people with his performance this week. I'm gonna play Zarrukh Adashev. Right now I can get him plus 170 at Superbook Sports. I'm not sure the line goes much higher than that, so I'm probably gonna snag that 170. It was sitting about plus 155 earlier in the week, and now is my time to pounce. And I'm probably gonna play that split decision prop. I think he's 14-1 to win by split decision in this spot. I think you can also make an argument for live betting him after round one, but the guy's a little firecracker. He's got some pop in his punches, and the way Osbourne fights, I wouldn't be surprised. Zarrukh Adashev is totally capable of knocking out Osbourne or getting a TKO victory. So I don't want to wait and play him after round one, even though you might get a better line in that spot. I'm willing to take that round one risk at this point, and I really like that split decision prop because Ode is going to lose round three if the fight gets there. So it's all going to come down to round two, and we know how these judges have been lately, folks. Next up, Poliana Botelho taking on Karine Silva. Botelho made 125.5. Karine Silva at 125. Botelho gave a silent scream and flex. You love when they do that. I'm like, just scream. Just scream. You're an MMA fighter. Go for it. Belt it. Let it loose. But she looked good. She looked good on the scales today. Karine Silva, no issues. Gave a solid flex. Looks very strong up there. I'll go ahead and admit that. This was a great face-off. Slight size advantage for Poliana, just a little bit, but this was intense. Like, both women are ready to go here in this spot. Poliana said in a interview earlier this week that she understands she's fighting for her UFC life here in this fight. She thinks that her back is against the wall. I love that type of energy coming into this. Silva's a minus 125 favorite. Poliana Botelho's plus 105 as the underdog. You guys know the Dana White Contender Series fade is my angle. That's in play in this spot. It demands that I play Poliana Botelho. I did get her at even money earlier in the week, so, 5-cent move, I'm not going to complain about that. I wish I could have it, but obviously I'm already locked in, so I'm playing the dog here. Poliana Botelho showed some good takedown defense. She's the better striker of the two. Karine Silva has shown that she will swing herself to death and gas out hard, so I think the body kicks and the body attacks of Poliana Botelho is something that will help that along, and we can either win a decision or get a late TKO in this spot. She's just got to mind her P's and Q's in the grappling. As long as she doesn't stick her neck out there, she should be okay, and she won't get tapped by Karine Silva. Another spot where the UFC veteran makes her presence known. I know a lot of people don't like that pick, a bunch of people on the other side of it, but again, it's the angle. Dana White Contender Series fade demands that I play this side. Luke Almeida taking on Mike Trizano. Both guys make 145.5. Almeida was shredded on the scales today. Lots of flexing. He looked good. Mike Trizano looked dialed in. He had to go get the hat. He looked like maybe he had a little bit of a tough cut, but again, he perked up once he had the hat on and started showing off a little bit. Good face-off. Slight size advantage here for Lucas. This is a spot that, again, has been bugging me kind of all week. I was on Mike Trizano against Hakeem Duwato, and I'm asking myself, like, why am I not on Mike Trizano against Lucas Almeida? Obviously, the line dictates a lot of that. I don't really want to lay minus 220 on Mike Trizano, but he could look like a monster in there come Saturday. He absolutely could. Lucas Almeida, though, coming off of the Contender Series, got a tune-up fight between his loss on Contender and making his UFC debut, plus 190, wings heavies, comes in hard, carries that power great, super aggressive. This is going to be a fun fight. This will be a really fun fight, but I think Mike Trizano probably just outclasses him, and he's talking about getting the finish. That's something that I'm kind of buying into. Trizano's one of these guys that's like, I'm tired of these fights going to decision, always being boring, always being close. So if he comes out here and goes back to his grappling, I think there's some chance that he wins by submission because he's going up against a guy that doesn't get finished by strikes, doesn't get finished at all, really. But if he manages to get him to the ground, we've seen some chokes in Mike Trizano's earlier career. Going back to that other sketchy-ass website that we don't mention here, you look at like the Darce and the Anaconda, 30-1. Maybe just a little nibble. Maybe just a little taste of that. Movsar Evloev taking on Dan Ige. Evloev 146, Ige 145.5. Movsar insanely jacked. This guy moved up from 135 to 145, didn't miss a beat, filled right up. Crazy flex on the scales today. Dan Ige, classic Dan Ige. No issues. Not one of these guys that's super physically imposing but looks solid up there on the scales. This was a good face-off. There was a slight size advantage for Movsar Evloev, which is surprising because coming up from 135, he's never the bigger guy. He's never got a size advantage. So the fact that he's slightly bigger than Dan Ige, I mean, that can't hurt, right? He started talking basically immediately. I wanna go back and find Dana White's clip that he always tweets out. I want to hear what he was saying to him. But good face-off. Both guys extremely confident. I did end up throwing Movsar Evloev in that parlay with Aaron Blanchfield, and it was the under 2.5 on the violence bet that was the third leg for Mozharov and Minifield. That fight I don't think is getting out of round 1, but if it does, I definitely don't think it's going over 2.5. So it's a 3-legger, big chalk pieces, minus 130. I think it cashes. It's another one of those favorites should come through and win type of situations. I couldn't help myself. I didn't have enough action on this card. I had to do it. But I do think Movsar Evloev, with his wrestling heavy game plan, the body lock, the constant grind, I think he can get this thing done. I totally understand and respect anybody taking the dog shot on Dan Ige. He has fought a better level of competition. He's been fighting absolute killers at the deep end of the division in this case. He's got fast hands, good power. Like, he could starch Evloev here in this spot. He could outwork him and in round 3 be the fresher guy and end up, getting a TKO victory or something like that. It absolutely is on the table. It could happen. But I'm going to go ahead and believe that Movsar is ready to take that jump here in this spot. Main event time. Alexander Volkov taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Two of my boys going at it. Volkov came in at 256.5. Rozenstruik came in at 259. And Alexander Volkov looked absolutely solid. We know he's a massive dude for the weight class. 3 pounds heavier than his last weigh-in. He's been kind of bouncing around a little bit. There was that time where he blew up all the way to the limit, 265, to make sure he capitalized on his size and his frame to fight these bigger boys. He kind of slimmed back down for a little bit. There was the whole COVID situation with the Tybura fight, and now he's back up. He's going a little bit heavier in this spot. You got to wonder if maybe he's emphasizing the power. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, classic biggie boy with a twist. He had an extra quarter pounder on him. He was a bit thicker than usual. He usually comes in at 254. So the fact that he came in 5 pounds heavier, I know people are just like, Clint, your tinfoil hat's too tight. What are you talking about, bro? When you look at heavyweight boxers, or even if you go back to the Stipe DC trilogy, those fights were decided on these guys' weights. You looked at how they came in. When Daniel Cormier came in heavy, he knocked Stipe out. For the rematch, they both came in 15 pounds lighter because they knew it was going to be a longer fight. They needed the cardio. They needed the speed. I think Biggie Boy is putting some poundage on here because he's looking for a knockout bomb. I know that's what he does already. He's got the power. But you think he's probably coming in here against one of the bigger guys in the division saying, you know what, I can't get pushed around. I can't be light. So he's coming in a bit heavy in this spot, and he's probably going to look for that big kill shot. Tweeted about chopping the tree down. Man, we're in the small cage. If Jairzinho wants to crowd Volkov, attack the legs, and then overhand the boy, we've seen that work before. I love Alexander Volkov. He is my guy. Minus 155 seems like a buy low spot on him. I can't help but want to play Jairzinho Rozenstruik as the underdog here. Plus 135, obviously, everybody and their mom has said it. Nobody thinks Jairzinho is winning by decision. You can get Jairzinho by knockout at plus 245 over on Superbook Sports. I've only seen him as high as plus 200 anywhere else. So if you think that he is going to get it done by knockout, head over to Superbook because they've got the best knockout line on the market that I have seen. I think Jairzinho is extremely live. I think the small cage helps him. I think the fact that Alexander Volkov has been a little defensively void lately works to his advantage a little bit. I don't want to just completely shit on my guy Volkov because he's one of my favorite fighters. I've been a fan of his for a long time. I've made a lot of money with him. So, like I said, this could be a super buy low spot. Maybe he comes out and looks like Volkov of old and just dices up Biggie Boy for 25 straight minutes, but I don't know what side to be on here, if I'm being completely honest. There's 2 outcomes, and it's either Volkov gets it done by keeping the range and he's over, or it goes under and it's because Biggie Boy clips him. I actually wouldn't be surprised. Now, again, tinfoil hat might be just a little bit too tight for this one, but the way that Volkov fights, it tends to extend these fights. Jairzinho doesn't really go balls to the wall early, and the way he talked about chopping the tree down, that kind of lends itself to a longer end game plan. That's something where you work on your opponent's legs and body to get them to slow down, and then you go for the kill later in the fight. So if he's looking to do something like that, I might sprinkle the late round props on Jairzinho. You remember the Alistar Overeem fight where he was losing every minute of the fight up until that 5th round. Last minute of the fight, unloaded and blew the face off of Alistar Overeem. Jairzinho in round 4 is 22-1. Jairzinho in round 5 is 28-1. And there are other books where you can do the combo props, obviously, where you get the exact method of victory as well on those. And I could see, even though Jairzinho Rozenstruik is not going to get much extra credit for winning by knockout, the price tags are probably a little bit better than they otherwise would be. No, never mind. The bookies are smart again. But I wouldn't mind those late round sprinkles on Jairzinho Rozenstruik because I do think he could have a sense of urgency late, and especially if he goes in with a leg kicking attack and tries to chop down Volkov, We've seen Volkov slow down and tire out deeper in a fight before, and that's when Biggie Boy can pounce on him. That is the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show, folks. I'm going to add a couple of bets. Follow me at DieHard MMA Pod. You can find out exactly what I'm betting there. I always tweet out my action live and free. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what your favorite tinfoil hat pick is for UFC Vegas 56. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Good luck on all your degenerate action, and let's freaking roll. I want to make some money this week. Let's go.